Hello and welcome back to Trains Up North. In this episode we continue our look at UK signalling, concentrating on colour light signals. So what are colour light signals? Well, as the name suggests, these are signals that display coloured lights to trains, rather than semaphore arms. If you want to know a bit more about semaphore signals, there should be a link at the top of the screen now. Okay, so colour light signals, they are fixed signals, and they were first used in 1921 by the Liverpool Overhead Railway and are now extensively used across the UK rail network. Unfortunately, the Liverpool Overhead Railway no longer exists. Other countries also use colour light signals, however the design, display and meaning of these lights does differ, so I'm not going to be looking at these because, to be quite honest, I know very little about them. Although the designs have changed slightly over the years, the meanings have pretty much remained the same. So, red has traditionally meant stop, and it still means stop. So, the signals appear to display 1, 2, 3 or 4 aspects. These tend to be stacked one on top of the other in a vertical manner. However, in some situations, such as stations, where they may be put under canopies and things, they may be side by side in a horizontal arrangement. I do say appear to display because modern LED signals, you can get multi-aspect heads on the signals, so the signal can display more than one colour. So aspect, what is that? So each light is known as an aspect. So when the signals are mounted on poles side of the track or on overhead gantries, then the red aspect is at the bottom. Above this is a yellow aspect and then a green aspect. If you've got 4 aspects, then a second yellow is placed above the green. Where the colour light signals are mounted at ground level, such as repeaters, where you've got 2 signals that display the same, then the red light is switched round and the red light's at the top. So it'd go red, yellow, green, just like a traffic light for a car, and then yellow again. So that's if they're mounted at ground level. The layout of this ensures that the red aspect is always closest to the driver's eye. So again, if you've got them under a canopy, the red is going to be closest to the track, so it's closest to the driver's eye, because the red is probably the most important one. Because can you go on a yellow or a double yellow? Well, yes you can. Can you go on a green? Yes you can. Can you go on a red? No. So red's the only one that you can't go on. Not all signals can display all aspects. So you might get some signals that aren't able to display a red aspect. This does sound a little bit strange, but it is true and there are reasons for it. And you might get others that might not be able to display a green aspect. So it might sound obvious, but signalling equipment and systems is expensive to install and maintain, and some locations, such as the approach to stations, you might just omit the green because you're not going at high speed into a platform, especially if it's a bay platform, because guess what, there's a buffer stop at the end, so you're going to be going slow, so you're probably going at caution anyway. At locations where the train doesn't need to stop, or where it isn't desirable to stop a train, we might omit the red aspect. So if you've got quite a long uphill gradient, it might not be desirable to stop the train there, so you might want to omit the red aspect, especially if there's not a lot going on around there. So it's used more as the signalling is used more as an advance warning to the train. It might have a yellow and a green, so then the driver will know, yeah, I've got a green, I can carry on, or I've got a yellow, so I need to start taking speed off, because the next aspect might be at red. So if a signal can't display a red, this is conveyed to the driver by a little white triangle on the signal ID plate. So signal ID plates are plates that are attached as the name suggests, to the signal, and they have letters and numbers which allow the drivers and railway staff, such as S&T staff, P-way staff, just to identify the signals. So this is a unique combination of letters and numbers. The letters will indicate either the signal box or the route that you're on, and then the number of the signal. So you might get AB10 on the signal plate, which would be Alpha Bravo 10 signal. Originally, electric bulbs were used, but these are now being changed for LED signals. The electric bulbs were actually dual filament bulbs. So if you think about certain car bulbs where you've got the tail light and the stop light in one, or the dipped headlight and the main beam in one bulb, similar to that. And the idea of that was if one filament broke, it'd revert onto the other one, so you wouldn't have a signal that didn't display an aspect. So light bulbs, after a period of time, the filament can break, and that stops the electric flowing through the light, which stops the filament heating up, which ultimately displays the light. If that happened, it'd revert back to the secondary filament in the bulb, and it'd also send a signal saying that that's what it had done. And so the signalling staff would know, and they could send someone out from S&T to change the bulb in the signal. There are a number of good reasons why we might choose colour lights over semaphore signals. So firstly, visibility. You can see a colour light signal from a lot further away than you can see a semaphore signal. So sometimes if you go to a railway platform and you look down the track, you can see not just one signal, but you can see sometimes 3 and 4 signals further down. It's really quite interesting. Obviously, stay well back from the platform edge if you're doing this, but if you look down and watch after a train goes past, and you'll see the sequencing of the signals and as they revert back. Automation. So using colour lights, you can automate them a lot easier. So signalling system, it detects the presence of the train, and then it puts the signal behind it to danger. And as the train progresses down the track and the train moves from one section to another, then it goes, oh right, the train's now moved into the next section, so I'll put the preceding one at danger, at red, and the one before that I'm going to put it at yellow, and so on and so forth. It reduces the number of signal boxes, and also the amount of stress and workload on signallers, because again, if you've got an automated system, then the signaller, rather than having to physically do things and change things, they're more monitoring it. There are certain things where a signaller will need to change, such as the points and setting routes up, but they don't have to change every single signal as the train goes down the line. So if you couple the colour light signals with motorised points, then your signal box doesn't even need to be anywhere near where you're actually signalling. For example, you look at the Network Rail ROCs, the rail operation centres. They cover huge sections of track from centralised locations. Again, it has benefits of doing that, because you've got your signallers in one place, you've got supervisors in one place, and if something goes wrong, it's a lot easier to coordinate your signallers and your staff to deal with incidents. You can actually reduce the clearing point on track if you've got a colour light. So a clearing point, if you've got a signal that's at danger, so we've got a signal at danger on this track, before we can let a train go up to that signal, we we have to have a point beyond that signal that's clear. So if the train goes past that signal at danger, it doesn't collide with anything, doesn't cause any accidents. So I'm going to just, if we look at these diagrams that I've put on now, so you've got a signal, so signal 1, and beyond that is a junction. So if there's points from the other line, from the down line, going across the junction, we haven't got the clearing point, so we can't allow a train up to that signal, because if it overran, we'd have an issue. So what can we do? Well, we can either ensure that the junction's clear and put the points back to normal so that trains can't go down the junction. Or we can put the signal further back so that we've got a clearing point. And, you know, the reasons why we'd do either one of these would depend on a number of factors, but this is what we'd do in reality. So how far does that clearing point need to be? Well, where the distance signal is a semaphore signal, our clearing point is 440 yards. So 440 yards beyond that stop signal needs to be clear. So nothing else can go into that 440 yards. You can't use it twice. So you can't use it for, on my example, you can't use it for a train approaching signal 1 and signal 2. If you've used it for signal 1, you can't use it for signal 2. So that's how it goes. If we change that distance signal for a colour light signal, we can reduce the clearing point to 200 yards. Now, it doesn't matter what the stop signal is. That can be a semaphore. It all depends on what that distance signal is. So if you can reduce from 440 yards to 200 yards, just over 50%, you've suddenly got a lot more capacity. The other thing that we can use to increase capacity on the network with colour lights and run trains at slightly higher speeds is the addition of things like double yellows, which just give drivers a little bit more warning, and also flashing yellows. So again, just gives drivers a little bit more warning, and we can run trains a little bit quicker because we can slow them down well in advance of where we need to. So I'm just going to go through the different aspects and what they mean, and I'm going to start with the red. Just as the danger signal, the stop signal, when it's on, shows a little red aspect as well as the horizontal arm. The red signal at danger quite simply means stop. So red signal at danger quite simply means stop. So you see that, you stop at the signal. Now, I've got to get someone shouting at the video saying, well, we've got a little lamp on a semaphore arm, so why do we need colour lights? Because it does the same job. Yes and no. Yes, it does, from the point of view of you've got a little light there. However, the size of the light for the colour light is a lot bigger, a lot brighter than the little lamp that you get on a semaphore signal. So they are, although yes, I will have it that you still have coloured light on a semaphore signal, it's not the same. So moving on, we get a single yellow. So this is a caution signal. So this is the same as the distant arm being on a semaphore, and this is going to be at least braking distance from the next signal. So if you're doing it on your models, make sure that your distance signal is at least braking distance, because you start braking at this signal, so it needs to be at least braking distance so you can come to a nice stop. It'll be braking distance for the heaviest train in the worst traction that would be expected. So if you've got an area where you've got things like leaves that are an issue, we'll make sure that this signal is far enough back so that if we've got a heavy freight train that's going to take longer to stop, especially when there's poor adhesion on the rail, then it's far enough back so it can still stop. So if you've got a passenger train that can stop a lot quicker, then the driver will know this because the drivers know the routes. So they just won't put as much brake on. So it'll be a nice, slow, gradual brake rather than a harsher one. So signal yellow, it's caution. Next signal, maybe at red, maybe at danger. The double yellow, this is a primary caution. So this is new, we don't have this in semaphore signalling. And this advises drivers that the next signal may be at caution. So these are introduced just so we can get a little bit more capacity on the rail network. So it just breaks the signalling sections up into smaller sections, and then we can get more trains in. And then we have the green aspect. So this means the line is clear and you can proceed at full line speed. We do have a flashing yellow. These are used on high speed routes to warn drivers of a diverging route ahead. And the next signal may be at caution with a diverging route either to left or right. So then we have a double flashing yellow. Again, this is another primary warning, and it indicates the next signal may be at a single flashing yellow. So you're travelling along as a driver at 125 mile an hour on a high speed piece of line, and you see the double flashing yellow. So you now know the next one could be a single flashing yellow, and then after that we're going to get a single yellow and a diverging route. Or we can't go over a set of points onto a different line at 125 mile an hour. It doesn't work. You've just come straight off the track. So when you see this, you're going to start going, I've got a diverging route coming up. So I'm going to take power off and start slowing the train down so I can go at a nice speed over the points onto the other line. In some locations, SPAD indicators were installed. Now, a SPAD indicator is a signal that's really quite unusual, as they're not normally lit. So signals, as I've said previous, they're always lit. There are a couple of exceptions to this, I know, but as a general rule, signals are always going to be lit, apart from SPAD indicators. So SPAD indicators, they have three aspects, and they have a blue background, whereas normal signals, the signal surround is black or a dark grey. These are on a blue background. If a train passes a signal at danger, the SPAD indicator illuminates. So it will have a solid red light in the centre, and it will have flashing red lights above and below the solid red. On the centre light, which is solid, it also has the word stop written across it. So if you're driving a train and you see this signal flashing, first of all you're going to think, oh dear, is it me? You're going to stop the train. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is you. It just means a train has passed the signal at danger, but it could be your train that's in danger, i.e. something else may have passed another signal at danger and may be coming in the opposite direction to you. So when you see these, everyone that can see them, they stop. You'd also put out things like an emergency call on the radio telling all trains to stop. These SPAD indicators can be installed on semaphore signals. These are the same light housing that's used to illuminate the semaphore arm. So it's only small light, it's a single light, and it flashes red. I've tried to find out information on how common these were. Unfortunately, I haven't. I do know that there is one, well, two, because there's one at each end of the line, on the East Lancs Railway between Bury and Ramsbottom. And it's on the section signals. As you leave Bury, the section signal going towards Ramsbottom, and again, as you leave Ramsbottom, it's on the section signal. Just to warn you if someone passes the signal at danger. As a passenger, you'll probably never ever see this lit. But if you're a volunteer there and you do engineering trains, sometimes you might see this, but it is really rare. Yeah, if you're ever on a railway and you see a spad light flashing, it's a case that someone's done something wrong, or it could just be a case that there's a fault on the system. If you're in Manchester and use the Metrolink tram system, just as a side note, they have spad indicators, but theirs are blue. So at some locations on the Metrolink system, a couple of the single track sections, Rochdale, that's got spad indicators. Castlefield in the city centre, that's got spad indicators. On the Metrolink, these are blue flashing lights, and they mean the same as they do on the rail network. That someone could have potentially passed the signal at danger and that you stop. So, I said earlier on that colour light signals have changed over time. I'm now just going to go over some of these changes. When colour light signals were introduced in the Great Western region and replaced the semaphore signals, the lights that are displayed basically copied what the semaphore signal arm could display. So you had a light source that could display either red and green or yellow and green, and you'd have one above the other. So you'd have a red and a green at the top and a yellow and a green underneath. So how does this work? Well, if the line was clear, you'd get a green light at the top and a green light underneath. Two greens, it's all clear. So that was the same as having both signal arms off, because then they'd both display a green aspect. If the signal was at caution, you'd have a green at the top and a yellow underneath. So this, it just mimicked and copied what you'd have on a semaphore arm. So if the stop signal was off, that'd display a green, but the caution signal was on, that'd be displaying a yellow, so that's why you got a green above a yellow. And if the signal was at danger, you'd get a red light at the top and a yellow light underneath. So that'd be the same as if both arms were on. It's not used anymore, but that's why it was the way it was. The London North Eastern Railway, LNER, developed what was called a searchlight signal. So this signal, it was quite advanced really for the time. So you're looking at 1930s, but it was just one signal aspect, but it could display multi-colours, so you could have red, yellow, green through one aspect. And if you look now at LED signalling, we've sort of gone back to that, how things change. Again, depending on when you're modelling, during the war, the lens hoods, so the bit that covers the top over the light, these were made longer during the Second World War. And the reason they were is just to stop any enemy aircraft from seeing the signals, because if the enemy aircraft came over, so if in the UK, if the German aircraft came over and they could see railway signals, they knew it was a railway, and guess what? A railway, we can bomb that. So what the British did was decided we're going to extend the lens hoods just to reduce the amount of light going up into the sky. So if you're modelling a wartime layout or just after the war, you might want to put longer lens hoods on. So I think that'll do me for now. So if you're modelling really early colour light signals, you might want to just go away and do a little bit of research. Bear in mind that when they first started to come in, it would have been mainline. As with anything new and expensive, you start off with where it's needed and you don't upgrade it until it's actually needed, which is why some locations you still get semaphore signals and traditional signal boxes. So I'm going to hand it over to you now, because there's a couple of different ways I can go for the next video in this series on our journey into learning. I've got 2 different ideas and I want your opinion on which one I do next. Do we go for junctions and look at signalling around junctions and depots and things like that, subsidiary signalling? Or do we go into block sections and how signalling actually works in reality? So what would you prefer? Would you prefer a video on block section, or would you prefer one on subsidiary signals and junctions and things like that? Let me know in the comments below and then I'll put that video out first. I'm going to do both videos, so don't worry, don't think that if you pick one you're going to miss out on the other. I will do both, it's just the order that they come out in. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, click the thumbs up button and like the video. Don't forget to comment and tell me what you want. Subscribe so you don't miss any videos that are coming up. And do you know somebody that you think this person might benefit from this video? If you do, share it. And on that note, I'd like to say thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.